all profit is value extraction. And that means that all profit is theft from you.
Corporate America is on welfare, and we've got to get them off welfare.
The last words on my lips, I am a revolutionary, and you're going to have to keep on saying that.
Hi, welcome to Cars and Comrades, the podcast about automotive culture from a leftist perspective. My name is Bryant. With me is Brandon and Connor today. Say hello, guys.
Hi.
Hey.
And Zach couldn't make it. He might jump in on the call later on, but I'm not sure what his schedule is today exactly. So
he's abandoned us.
Yeah. Well, I hope not.
Well, for the day.
So we're going to talk about some automotive news stories today that we found interesting. There's some stuff that happened since we last did a news episode, but first let's get started talking about what we've been up to on our various project cars and give a little update for the listeners there. So I guess let's just go alphabetical again. Brandon, I know you said you were working on your Cutlass. Is that right?
I've actually been working on a whole lot. I somehow managed to work an insane amount of hours and still fix stuff. I fixed an intermittent problem that I was having with my van. It was the ever so complicated. My carb was barely bolted down.
That'll do it.
I've literally never taken the carb off of this motor, so I had no real reason to think to double check it. But suddenly my engine started lean popping under heavy load, and I was obviously concerned about that. So when I started chasing things down, I realized that under enough load, it was pulling enough vacuum to pull air in from underneath the carburetor and lean out the mixture.
Huh. You think it would make a better seal under vacuum, but
I mean, that's what a buddy of mine said, but we're literally talking about bolts that were barely hand tight.
Okay. So it was just rattling around kind of.
So it wasn't rattling around, but I think it would have only taken a small kink in the gasket underneath the carb to keep that from sealing up really good. I fixed that and a bunch of other small little stuff. Pretty much every fluid on my van became low at once in a very stressful weekend of me trying to figure out why everything was leaking. There was no answer. It just coincidentally aligned that my transmission fluid, oil, coolant, and power steering fluid and brake fluid all managed to get low on the same weekend. God bless old vehicles. And I got my Cutlass running good. Some stuff was wired backwards, and so I got that wired properly, and now it's charging correctly without cranking my alternator up to being like 200 degrees. And I drove that around for a while this weekend to make sure all the bugs were sorted out, and it seems to be doing good. And I've also been helping a friend of mine do some welding on a 63 Volkswagen bus, like a split window bus with the camper top. Like, it's a pretty uncommon, rare sort of model, and he needed help welding it, so I've been doing that. That sort of has taken over my time that I had to work on my personal projects, which sucks, but I'm happy to see something cool like that get back on the road. And I'm thinking about taking a break from my van for a couple of weeks, and the van that I'm fixing up, and putting one of my bikes together, because I have this shovelhead chopper project that has been sitting around for like 5 years.
Yeah, that sounds like fun. It'd be good, especially if the weather's getting nicer there. I don't know how it is right now there.
I could be out riding right now. It's like 68 degrees right now. And I think I have probably 98% of the parts to put that bike together, and just need to machine a couple of things and maybe do a little bit of welding and probably spend a couple $100. I think the only thing expensive off the top of my head that I know I need is an ignition module. And I've worked enough overtime in the last fucking month that I can afford to put that bike together. So I should just do that.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds cool.
And that's it. That's me.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I've been working on some of my projects that I want to get done, for nicer weather. I think since last time we talked, I fixed the electrical problems on my MR2, which I'm not really sure what the problem was. I just kind of took a bunch of stuff out, pulled the plugs apart, cleaned the contacts, and put them all back together, and now it works. So I guess maybe just a little clip was loose or something like that. But yeah, so now the turn signals and headlights work, so that's good. I was driving it last night, and I really do love that car. Like, it's a little 1.6 dual overhead cam engine. It kind of sounds like a liter bike a little bit. It revs up to, I think the red line's 7,500, and it comes on cam around, I don't know, like 4,500 or something like that. So it really loves to be revved, and it's a lot of fun, even just driving around in traffic with it. I still need to fix the alignment where it got a little bit bent when I ran into a curb. I'm not sure if, because I've got it maxed out on the adjustment for the camber, I believe. And I'm not sure if I should start grinding extra material out of the the strut mount part of the hub thing, or if I should notch out the mounts for the top of the strut where it bolts under the body of the car to change the angle that way. I'm
I would
thinking
think they've got to have a camber kit for that, don't they? Where you just
maybe.
change out the arm. I would think they've got to have. I mean, personally, because when you're cutting, it's hard to be, exactly right, and for alignment.
Yeah, I mean, I know I could get coilovers, and that would come with the adjustable top hats, but um, I'm not sure what all would be involved with a camber kit that you're talking about.
Well, I mean, it depends on. I don't know what kind of suspension it's got, but usually you've got some kind of whatever upper control arm that might adjust, or the top hats if it's that type, or even your lower control arms might be able to be extended or something.
Oh,
There's all
okay.
kinds of little things, and it's different for every car.
I'll have to look
They
into
got to have
that. I
both
don't
though.
know if there are any aftermarket lower control arms, but it's a strut type suspension. Just regular McPherson struts. Basically the
Gotcha.
same as what was on the same model year Corolla, just lowered down and maybe a little bit different. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I'll look into that. Like I've seen, the drifters do their own camber things where they grind out the holes in the strut mount to get more adjustment that
Hmm.
way, and that's kind of what I was thinking. Um,
Yeah, you could probably. I mean, I suppose that it's it can be a little sloppy, but it might get if you only just carve out a little bit. Yeah, I suppose that'll
yeah,
get you somewhere.
yeah. I might talk to some experts and professionals about this, but we'll see. Um,
Yeah, a good friend of mine is embarking soon on making fully custom tubular upper and lower control arms for his dad's pickup. I'm really excited to see how that gets done.
that's cool. I
Yeah,
mean,
nice.
yeah, if you're a skilled enough fabricator and you have, you can make a little jig for it. That seems like a pretty straightforward operation.
He's been building custom cars his whole life,
Yeah,
and his dad's pickup is it's a C10, like a 65, 66 C10 that will lay frame. It's airbagged and
nice.
like slammed. So, and it's on I think 20 or 22-inch rims. So they were not
Nice.
able to come up with any affordable and reasonable solution to the control arm problems that they were encountering, and he just said, "Fuck it," he's building them.
Nice. Yeah. I, you know, my old Miata had probably the best suspension of any car that I've ever driven as far as like the double wishbone setup. And um, that's the only real downside of the MR2 that I can think of, other than it, not having a whole lot of power. Um, so if I had the means to do so, I would probably put Miata front suspension on the MR2, which would require a lot of cutting and welding and stuff. And then probably like late 90s Civic suspension in the rear, or maybe CRX or CRV, I mean, the all-wheel drive rear end from one of those. I'm not sure if that would work, but it's a fairly compact setup as far as double wishbones go for a rear suspension. But yeah, I don't know. That's probably never going to happen. But I guess the other project I've been working on is my recumbent bicycle. It's a Bike ECT, I believe, is the model. And it has this weird hub transmission that's not made anymore by SRAM or Sachs, or maybe both. I think one bought the other, and it's a 3-speed planetary hub transmission, and then it has a 7-speed cassette on the outside of that with a derailleur. And I got when I took it apart to re-grease it, I put the bearing in backwards. It has like this caged bearing, and I put it in backwards, and it shredded the cage for the bearing because I'm a dumbass. So I couldn't find that caged bearing anywhere. It's like a special proprietary size that they only made for this one transmission. I don't know why they didn't just use a standard off-the-shelf part, because you can buy like caged bearings for like headsets or bottom bracket, crank bearings for a bicycle that are a standard size. Like, why did they use this? Whatever, I think it's like 40.2 millimeter or something like that. Anyways, I ended up just buying a whole new rear hub and wheel from some guy in Alaska. So of course the shipping was just as much as the actual thing itself. But he was real nice and sent me some other junky old hub transmission for a different bike. So I've got that to tinker around with, in my spare time, and maybe make up a spare wheel for it. So we'll see about that. So I got that wheel installed on my bike and changed the tire over and all that and hooked it up. And that part works great. But then in the process, I must have, when I flipped it upside down, I hit the handlebars on the ground or something, and I cracked the shifter mechanism for the derailleur. So the hub transmission shifts fine, and then the derailleur is all wonky. So I just went today to the bike shop and picked up a new shifter for that. So hoping to get that on the road and look like a dork on my recumbent bicycle down on the trail. So yeah, that's what I've been up to. I think that's about it.
I'm realizing how dumb all of my modes of transportation make me, because I just go with the least complicated setup always. My bicycle is fixed gear, no brakes, and I'm trying to get my van fixed up so it can be my daily driver again, and it doesn't even have independent front suspension.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow. Yep.
Yeah, dude. Before 1971, Chevy vans were a solid front axle.
And you were making fun of me for being all about steam engines.
Well, I mean, they still had gas motors.
Yeah, I guess 60 something technology is a little bit more high tech than 1860 something technology. So. But Connor, what have you been working on?
Not too much. I did speak with the engine tuner, which I had an appointment set up for tomorrow, technically, to bring my finished 350Z back for proper tuning. However, we are not quite there yet, and we pushed it back a month. And chances are I will have to push it back at least another couple weeks past that. So we're currently looking at like early to mid-May, because it's taking a while, which is just how it is. I mean, it's it's busy.
Nothing catastrophic. It's just a little slow.
No. it's just a little slow. So yeah, I haven't heard like, oh man, you fucking cracked the block or something. Nope, just it's taken a bit.
Okay.
And I initially made the appointment, and I was thinking like, oh, the car would go to the shop in like, around January 15th or something. I forget when it actually went, but it was definitely into February. So, you know, it's taking a
Just
while.
nothing
It
ever
got
goes.
there a little late.
Nothing ever goes on schedule. That I was hoping to have my van
Exactly.
ready for spring, and I'm just getting started on it.
No, exactly. And I kind of always knew that was how it was going to be, which I'm very fortunate to be, working from home. And, you know, if I really need a car to get around, I can use my girlfriend's car for something here or there, but generally speaking, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not doing anything. So it's been really fine. I'm not rushing. It is what it is. It's going to take however long it's going to take. So yeah, we pushed that back. So we're still working on that. So not much going on there. That's new. I did also bring my Camaro over to the shop because it's been at my dad's house, which it's hard for me to get over there now because I don't have my own car. So it's hard for me to get over there and work on it and look at this emissions shit I got to figure out. So I ended up just saying fuck it, take it to the shop, have them look for something's unplugged. Something is unplugged somewhere, and it's causing a check engine light, and that won't let me pass emissions. So it went over there. Again, no big deal there. It's gonna be what it's gonna be. And then this week, I think I might have solved my insurance issues. Because I was working on trying to find proper insurance. It's going to cover all this extra shit I'm putting into the car, which has been very difficult. And I thought I was looking through State Farm, and they're like, yeah, we can cover all that and everything, except of course, as soon as I started asking for a policy in writing, or like, hey, where's this on your website where it says you'll cover all this stuff, and oh, I got to talk to the underwriter, and oh, they said it'll probably work, and I'm like, well, dude, when my car is fucking smashed up, I don't want to hear probably. So I looked elsewhere. Right now, I think I'm looking at like Progressive, and it seems like they might have what I need. They were kind of willing to put into writing, like, yeah, here's how much coverage you'll get. Here's the way we would do this is you'd go and get a proper appraisal somewhere, which I don't know where the hell to get an appraisal on a car that's not like a classic car. So that's kind of weird, and I have to figure that out. But for like right now, before I get an actual appraisal, they'll just cover like, here, I have receipts for all this. They're like, yeah, that's fine. So they did at least put that like in an email. So I'm probably going to go with that, and it should save me some money on insurance from what I'm paying now, because initially my current insurance is based on I think 2 moving violations, and one of those dropped off my record recently. So by switching, I will escape the knowledge of said moving violations, or at least one of them. So that's where I've been lately, is shops and trying to figure out insurance.
Yo, have I bragged to y'all about how I haven't had a moving violation in like 15 years?
Yeah, I think you mentioned
every
that.
episode.
Yeah. Fuck you too. Yeah, I can be doing 100 in a van and it still looks slow. So
yeah,
nobody sees a van and thinks that's going fast.
I have noticed that I'll see dads in minivans just driving like 20 over the speed limit and nothing happens to them. So if you can, blend in that much, I don't know. I know you're not driving a minivan, but
no, my van has a big
weirdly
Pink
enough,
Floyd mural on the side.
Oh yeah, that's probably not helping. In my case,
Apparently it
both
is.
of my maybe. In my case, they're not even speeding tickets. Like, I've gotten really good at not getting speeding tickets and shit. These were both for using my phone while driving, and one of those was while I was, I take like almost no responsibility for it because I'm like I was doing that over the road driving job where I'd have to drive, 12 to 20 hours at a time. Yeah, I was using my fucking phone, to change the music or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like I had to. That was my only way to do whatever. So I got caught doing that, and then another time, once again changing the music in my Z on my way to work in the morning. A cop got me. So 2 moving violations, both for stupid using your phone stuff. Which I mean, I get. Don't use your phone when you're driving. It's bad, but I don't have like the fancy car systems that I'm like, hey, play this song or whatever. I've got really old school stuff. So
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm not especially inclined to like use my phone when I'm driving, but I use Spotify when I'm driving, and I don't have any hands-free sort of stuff in my 1975 van.
yeah. I mean,
I,
the cop's like, oh, you don't have any hands-free stuff? And I'm like, it's an '03. Like, no, I don't. I got to change the song. I don't know what to tell you.
Dude, my Cutlass predates the need for, like, seatbelts, I think.
I actually go ahead,
I typically listen to music just in earbuds, which is probably not the greatest idea, but my MR2 is kind of loud, but with the engine right behind my head. And also the stereo in that is kind of degraded over time so that like maybe 1.5 speakers works at any given time. And the only way I can put music through my phone to the stereo is with one of those like little FM transmitter things.
Yep.
So yeah, not even the little cassette adapter thing.
Okay, you're fucking up because again, 1975 van over here, and I have a Bluetooth radio.
Yeah, maybe I should just like pay $50 or $100 to get a new actual stereo that was built in the last century.
Mine was $18.
Okay. Oh, well, that's worth looking into.
Wait, was it from the junkyard?
What's that?
Was it from the junkyard?
Nah, I'm not encouraging this sort of shopping behavior, but I bought it from a Walmart.
Okay.
Yeah, they have a model. Okay. I think it's gone up. I think it's $22 now.
Oh, okay. So, well,
I don't know if
that's on my budget.
Yeah.
Well, hey, if it works, it works. I mean, I want to take a minute to take a shit on the quote-unquote hands-free infotainment systems they're putting in cars now with the touchscreens. I'm pretty sure that's way more dangerous than either a phone or any past radio. It seems like you've got to really look at what you're doing.
Yeah, especially if you're just like changing the heater or the AC or whatever, like you got to beep a bunch of buttons.
Go through a fucking menu while you're driving.
Yeah.
It seems dangerous to me. I think I'd like to see like a study on, hey, it turns out these are causing accidents or something. I don't know, but it seems like you have to take your eyes off the road kind of like for way too long.
Yeah. Actually, now that you mention it, previous guest of the show, James Gilboy, wrote an article about that very phenomenon, basically talking about how he has ADHD and like all these, screens and everything are just a huge distraction from driving and are going to cause wrecks and probably are causing wrecks,
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, I fully do not understand how hands-free makes anything safer. Not when you're basically having to operate Windows so that you can find any given thing you're trying to do.
Especially in most cars now, which, I mean, like, I get in a stick shift car, I have to, like, basically, I have to put myself into a safe situation before I can change the music, right? Because I have to have that hand free to shift. So I pretty much have to get into whatever gear I'm cruising at, and everything's got to be stable for me to do anything. Automatics don't even have that. So I'm like, they got a hand free, and you're going to have them go through a fucking whole Windows setup. And like you're saying, it seems dangerous to me.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know some newer cars have like the voice activated features, which is maybe a little bit safer than poking at a screen all the time, but
Okay, fun fact. I know that this is like the longest little intro discussion section we've had, but I experienced my first experience with Android Auto was we rented a car when we were in Colorado, and it got to a point where I was having to scream at the fucking stereo. It was driving me nuts. I swear to God, it was the worst thing I ever. I was like, and I got all pissed off. I had to pull over and I had to like, okay, turn it off, turn it off. I'm not doing this shit ever again. I will handle my fucking phone because that shit was, it was outrageous. It was nothing but problems, and it was unsafe. And I was like, this is fucking terrible.
Yeah.
Maybe okay. I'm sure once you get used to certain aspects of it, maybe it works better or something. I don't know, but I was very upset. And it would put my phone into a certain state where you can't like do anything with it either. So like the car has got a mind of its own on what the fuck it's doing, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. And that definitely created some unsafe driving conditions, I would say. So not a big fan of that. But I digress.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And come to think of it, when I changed out the stereo in my Subaru, one of the things I looked for specifically was a volume knob. At least that
Yep.
is not a button or something. And yeah, I don't know. But oh, and Connor,
But
I saw some of the photos of your Camaro that you posted with that. I didn't know it had that cool two-tone paint job. Like that is actually a really nice looking car. Like when someone says they have their old Camaro that they haven't driven in years or whatever, I think, what's this thing going to look like? But I was pleasantly surprised.
I also saw some pictures and was surprised. It doesn't look like the shitbox that you make it sound like.
Okay, look, if you were paying for it, it would feel like the fucking shitbox that it is, breaking all the time. But no, admittedly, it needs some work. The pictures that I most recently posted look real nice. They look really, really nice. The car is not quite as nice in person, I promise. But yes, it's the 30th anniversary with the orange stripes and everything. It's fucking cool looking, to say the least. And it can move. I just, after driving the Nissan is better to drive. It is just a more driver oriented car, I think. And yeah, that Camaro, I mean, I've spent some serious money on that Camaro. But yeah, I'm hoping to sell that for a good amount of money, hopefully. And I just want to get out from under it before something else major breaks, because I'm always scared that like the engine's going to explode again, or a transmission's going to go. It's had some issues, so I'm nervous about it breaking again.
Well,
but it does look cool.
In that car is that an LT1 or?
Yeah, it's an LT1.
Okay, what transmission? 4L60.
No, it's a T56.
Oh, that okay, cool.
Which is a good trans. However, right now my third gear is popping out, so someone's gonna have to do something about that, and it's not gonna be me. And I'm not gonna like lie and like try and no, it pops out of third gear. So the next owner's got to handle that. It's one of those things that like you can learn to drive with it, but like you don't want to be. If you're really trying to do a pull through all the gears, you have to be very careful, because you can easily over rev in third if it pops out on you.
Yeah,
I had a little Mazda years and years and years ago before I was really like a car guy, and it didn't even have third gear, so you can get by.
Yeah. I mean, trust me, it works. Especially you can shift that car. It doesn't have it now; it has it removed, but. That car came with, from the factory, second gear skip shift. So what it would do is it would like, I don't know how it worked exactly with the linkage, but like it put a little gate that led from second gear and like put you right down into fourth. So like you'd go in first gear, and when you get up to 10 or 15 miles per hour, and when you shift, it puts you right into fourth.
That's weird.
It is weird, but of course it was such a low down torquey motor that you can be in fourth gear going 12 miles an hour, and it'll work. It's going to be putzing along, but usually, like, if you don't need the power, it was a way to save gas and up their mileage on the vehicle when they sold it. So it was like that, and a lot of people obviously removed it because they hated that. It would, by the way, it only would engage if you're like going slow. So like if you really try and take off the line, it's not going to be there. You can go right in a second. But if you're just leaving off a light normal and you're not driving aggressively, it would put you right into fourth.
Huh.
So kind of an interesting little thing. A lot of people made fun of it or got rid of it or whatever. But I never drove it with that. So maybe it was a good option. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. It's kind of a clever workaround, I think.
Sounds dumb.
I mean,
I
for the time,
I'm critical of everything, but overloading an engine is not good for fuel economy.
Yeah, that could be.
Yeah,
too.
I mean, they must have found a way for it to work.
Yeah, they measured some difference with it, but they didn't need to. You weren't using that much gas in second and third gear, really. I mean, it already had very good highway mileage, that car, for what it was. I mean, it was almost 30 miles to the gallon in 97. It was fucking awesome. You almost didn't need to do much else.
There was 2 or 3 years ago, I remember reading that it was Chevy or Ford One was releasing like their new model year of pickup, and it had either a 4 or 6 cylinder option that got worse fuel economy under certain driving conditions than the V8 did because it was bogging the engine down so bad. And those fucking trucks weigh like 8,000 pounds, so you actually need a little bit of torque to get moving along.
I want to say the Chevy Silverado has like a 3-liter 4-cylinder with a turbo on it that gets almost the same mileage as the V8. And
my old boss had like this. It was the 4-cylinder. I think it was a turbo. I assume so.
Yeah.
And he said he did not get especially great fuel mileage out of it.
Yeah. And one thing I noticed about my MR2 driving it last night is it's starting to pop out of fifth gear, which I guess is a common problem with those gearboxes. My friend in college had a Corolla with the same transmission that was doing the same thing. And he just had a bungee cord that he wrapped around the shifter and tied to the center console or the dashboard or whatever.
If y'all trying to go fast, just put in automatics.
Well, I might have mentioned this. I might have mentioned this, but I think in the 88 or 89 model year, the MR2 with the supercharger and the automatic transmission was the quickest vehicle sold in the U.S. from 0 to 30 miles an hour. So
that's a weird hallmark.
It's a very specific record to have.
Yeah, it sounds like a baseball stat. This is the first pitcher to throw 8 strikes in blue socks since 1968. I swear to God, that's what I hear every time.
Yeah,
that's like those sound to me.
It's like those people that say that their car is ultra rare because it's like the only car with this color
Mopar
blue
guys.
And
fucking Mopar guys. They're the worst. This car was 1 out of 6 because it was the only one that had like this suspension package in a 4-speed with a front bench seat, and it was painted in this color green.
Right.
Like, motherfucker, like that doesn't make it a rare model. You just paint like it would be 1 of 10,000 if you just included all of the color options. Like, shut up.
Yeah.
But then somehow like everybody knows like 8 dudes that had a Hemi when they only produced 30,000 factory Hemi cars ever.
Yep.
Fucking Mopar guys, man. My best friend's one. I fucking hate it. Y'all want to move on to the news?
Yep. Connor, I think you found the first couple stories, so why don't you go ahead with that?
Yeah, okay. Well, coming I think this was about last month, if I remember correctly, but we're a little behind on our news, so hopefully we'll be a little more current going forward. But it is still noteworthy that GM has officially announced when they will be stopping production of all gas and diesel powered vehicles. So that's coming pretty soon. It seems like everybody is, all the automakers and various countries are kind of all consolidating around this 2035 target. So I wouldn't be surprised if you start hearing that's about where the end's going to be in other announcements. And a lot of other automakers are kind of expected to follow suit with this announcement. So GM did say that their goal is to be carbon neutral by 2040, which I'm not 100% sure what they're referring to by that. But in order to reach that goal, they will be stopping production of gas and diesel powered vehicles by the year 2035. So that's, which we were expecting. Our last episode, we talked about how Japan was going to be kind of banning internal combustion engines after 2035. I would think that the European Union is pretty much in the same vein. So we're likely to see the same thing happen here.
And does that mean the manufacturer of new internal combustion engines, or are they going to get rid of? Are they going to make it illegal to register a car with a gas engine?
I would think they are going to. Well, that's a good question. They are.
I would almost put money on it that GM is going to stop putting gas and diesel engines in vehicles, but they will never stop making the small block. Like you can, GM will never give up on the small block Chevy. Like it will be in production when there's only like 6 human beings left alive to operate the machines. It is the cockroach of engines.
Yeah.
Yeah, something tells me that I think this is more in relation to their quote unquote production vehicles. Who knows what's going to happen in terms of motorsports and what's available? If this is allowed to be a hobby that people continue, I don't know. I have a feeling a lot of that will be, for the most part, cars that were produced from the 1990s to 2035 will be in motorsports, but after that, well, that and electric vehicles. So but they might make some hobby, internal combustion engines for track use, but it wouldn't likely be that profitable for them to do that either. So,
dude, I love an 8 mile per gallon like big block V8, but if we're being real, like we're not far away from the point where electric motors are going to be able to absolutely dominate motorsports.
They pretty much, I mean, really, we just don't see many of them out there yet, but they pretty much already can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, especially for like short duration races like the Pikes Peak Hill Climb, they're already, beating records, of gas cars.
Yeah,
I don't know
it's tough to
a
compete.
lot about the handling, but having like that low center of gravity and the instant torque off the line, like you're not going to beat that sort of stuff with a gas motor.
Yeah, and for the hill climbs, you don't lose power at altitude, and that's a big factor for electric motors.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And same is true for steam engines, which is why one of my goals is to take the record for a steam powered car up Pikes Peak someday. But it's still a dream at this point.
Brian over here getting all reject modernity on us.
I'll be rooting for you. Anyway, so right now, what the article cited was that electric vehicles are currently accounting for only 3% of car sales in the U.S. Of course, that's kind of to be expected. It's kind of had a hard time getting off the ground, but naturally, this is going to ramp up pretty quickly. So, it seems like the shift is pretty rapid, but it really isn't surprising. It's going to ramp up pretty quick. So, in theory, in the next 5 to 7 years, I think your average person is going to be much more likely to buy an electric car than they were, today. So hopefully they can bring the cost down a little bit, because cars just seem to get more expensive constantly. Of course, which is weird because we've had almost no inflation for the last decade. So, but
I think it was 2 years ago that Chevy released their first pickup truck package that was over $100,000.
we got to do an episode on pickup truck prices at some point, because I don't understand how they're so expensive. It's like, okay, you use the same motor that you use in all these other cars. You've got a little more metal involved. Okay, where's the other cost coming from? Like, leather only gets so good.
Yeah, I think it's just because they can, really. Like, I mean, modern pickup trucks have turned into like luxury cars basically at this point.
It's the modern equivalent of in the 60s and 70s when there was the horsepower wars. Everybody was like trying to make engines that were like 400 and 500 horsepower, and those were the high end packages, and it was on muscle cars. And now they're just doing that same shit with pickup trucks, and the numbers are higher. I mean, of course it's going to cost more, but it's a status thing. It's a dick measuring competition.
Yeah.
I don't know. Fuck those guys.
All right. Anyway, so we know that global warming obviously is increasing, with Arctic ice melting 3 times more than expected for 2021. And of course, we've got raging fires in California and Australia and Oregon, and of course, all the others. So
none of this sounds like a problem.
Yeah, we're seeing the obvious effects here. And on top of that, we've got certain crop failures in some farming areas, all results of rapidly increasing global warming.
Don't forget that a lot of scientists are saying global warming is going to be a contributing factor to this and future pandemics.
Yes, that too. For all sorts of reasons too. That it's bad all around, obviously. Anyway, so according to GM, merely manufacturing zero polluting vehicles is not enough in their eyes. So carbon neutrality is on the minds of GM and many other corporations. So not exactly sure what is the difference here between manufacturing zero polluting vehicles and being actually carbon neutral. I think there's other offsets there for other activities within the company, but I'm not. A lot of that feels like it could just be kind of feel good scam PR stuff. I don't know.
That definitely sounds like greenwashing, because the actual production and shipping overseas and stuff of things contributes so much pollution, even compared to just fuel consumption.
Yeah,
I know that guy, the YouTube channel Engineering Explained. I think the guy's name is Jason something, Penske or something like that. He did like a pretty in-depth analysis of like electric cars versus gas cars as far as like the manufacturing and the usage of the cars. And he found that, by far the most of the emissions comes from driving a car versus manufacturing. But still, there's a significant portion. I think it's something like a quarter of the life of or a quarter of the emissions during the life of the vehicle that come from manufacturing.
Well, ultimately, it's not a static thing, because the amount of resources taken to produce something is fixed, and so you have to drive a certain amount of miles before the like if you drive a vehicle like 1 million miles, then you'll have have produced enough emissions to overcome what it takes to produce it. But
yeah, I think he said with a typical electric car, it was somewhere around 200,000 miles, which is a pretty typical lifetime for a car these days, I would say.
Yeah.
But don't quote me on those numbers. Go check out his video if you want to get the nitty gritty, I guess.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll probably do a topic on that at some point, because it's something I'm interested in.
Yeah, that actually is
myself.
something I want to do a deep dive on.
Yeah.
So keep listening to our show.
Yeah, definitely.
You must keep listening to us if you want to know. Don't go to
We
anywhere
are the
else.
only authorities on this.
I'm dumber than hell, but I'll read.
Yeah, we are trying. This actually does require some work on our part, believe it or not.
Yeah. I mean that Jason guy has some kind of an engineering degree, so I want to trust him on some stuff at least.
Yeah, no, he
But
is good.
I don't know.
I know who
I've
you're
got
talking
like
about. He's
I've got like half of an engineering degree, whatever that counts for.
there you go.
Which half?
The first half.
Okay. Yeah, not count for much. Yeah, the second half. That's really where it
Right.
all comes together.
Anyway, sorry, back to where we were, whatever. It is notable the stock market seemed to react pretty positively to this news about them not producing any more gas or diesel engines after 2035. So the um, stock price did continue its upward trend. It's currently at 59.82. The only reason I'm mentioning this is because in our last news episode when we talked about GM changing their logo, the stock price did spike, and I felt as though it was likely to be short lived. I looked at it. It kind of bounced around a little bit, but it is now respiking on this announcement. So chances are it's going to
Hey, if the
continue.
stock market says it, it must be true.
Well, it's not exact. Obviously, I'm just noting that the market seems to whatever is people are buying their stock based on this news is really what it comes down to.
No, they sacrificed some kids to Moloch, and Moloch blessed GM.
Pretty much, yeah. But point
General
being,
Motors, more like General Moloch.
well, they have clearly pleased the gods.
Yeah.
Like I said,
I mean, what are they gonna use for the fuel to like burn up infants in the sacrifices to Moloch? Like when gasoline is outlawed, like are they gonna get like old lithium ion batteries and like puncture them and use that for the fire, or
I mean,
what's
I'm
the
sure
deal?
the rich are always going to have some reserve of this stuff.
Okay,
They'll always
yeah.
have what they need to
Yeah, and
make
I
sacrifices.
actually heard that GM is switching over to all electrics so that they can save some gasoline for their sacrifices to Moloch.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
They can't just put it all in cars. They gotta make the sacrifices, keep the stock prices high.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and on that note, it is likely to stay high. As of right now, it doesn't look like there's nothing that seems to suggest that it's going to come down anytime soon. So
finally, stock prices that I can relate to.
Well, it's one of those things that like you look at this and you're like, okay, well, this is like BS, and this is gonna, it's kind of fluffed bullshit, and it will come back down. But if you throw enough well-timed fluffed bullshit out there, you can kind of keep the momentum going, and that appears to be what's happening there.
Tesla.
Yeah, they're brilliant at that. Brian, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I also found that that Audi announced that they're no longer developing new gasoline engines. They're going to switch over to electric. And it seems like a lot of companies are announcing this. I mean, we'll see if they follow through with it, but it seems like that's the way at least the market is going. Probably driven by regulations for the most part.
Regulations, but also just that's going to be the consumer demand. I mean, new car buyers are going to be increasingly a little more hesitant to buy gasoline powered cars, knowing that, well, it might be getting hard. Right now, it's hard to find a charging station for your electric vehicle, but soon that's going to flip, and it will eventually become difficult to find a gas station or one that has gas or whatever. That it's going to probably go up in price. People are starting to wonder if now is the time to get the electric vehicle, because I don't know what it's going to look like if you own a gas vehicle in the next 10 years. I have no idea. It may become wildly impractical.
I don't want to have this conversation because I'm putting big blocks in 2 of my cars this year.
You're gonna have to go down to the apothecary and get some benzene, like what's her name? Benz, the wife of was it Carl Benz, the guy that made the first gasoline powered car. Oh yeah, she took it on the first road trip ever, and had to stop at a pharmacy to get benzene for fuel because no one just sold gasoline.
Yo, funny enough, I'm putting a big block in my Cutlass so that I can improve my gas mileage. Because
okay.
The 455 olds makes so much download torque that you can basically like cruise at idle.
Okay, well that makes sense.
With a 1-to-1 transmission, like no overdrive, like I've heard accounts of them getting into the low 20s.
Not bad for that big of an engine. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like that's not common, but I hear 18 is something you can reasonably expect out of a 455 that isn't like crazy overbuilt.
Nifty.
You know, when we were talking on Slack yesterday about, and we were posting all these news stories and stuff, it kind of got me thinking of like, what if there was like an actual Green New Deal that took effect like today, and one of the provisions was no new cars manufactured at all, like not even electric cars, like, and or maybe even just like taking some of the capacity of manufacturing cars and switching it over to mass transit. Like, what would that look like? And one of the things I was thinking of was like, what if, you know, Ford or GM or whatever started making trains, like light rail or subway trains or whatever? Like, what would those look like? And I started thinking, you know, what if they started using car parts or truck parts in these trains? Like, you have the cab of the front end of the train is like a truck cab, and like the doors to get in for the passengers are just like car doors on the side of it or whatever.
Dude, there was some kind of train that got manufactured in England that was supposedly basically a bus on a train chassis. And
oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Everything I've heard about them, which is not a lot, but everything I've heard about them made them sound absolutely awful, like miserable to be in.
Right. I think it was I don't remember the name of it. I think they talked about it on Well, There's Your Problem. But it was like some kind of commuter rail for like more rural areas or suburban areas. And I think a lot of it had to do with just the infrastructure surrounding those stations, and everything was not built up in a very, you know, nice way. It was just like a bus shelter in the US. You know, it's like a little shack with 3 sides on it that you sit in and wait for the train to come by or whatever. And then the train is like, you know, noisy and smells like diesel and stuff.
Yeah, it's everything that you want in a train. Dude, if I'm going to be on a long train trip, I at least want to get high on the fumes.
Oh, dude, riding the city bus in Denver, I once got some carbon monoxide poisoning from having the window open a little too near the exhaust. Yeah, I showed up to work and I was like, I feel kind of sleepy and my head hurts, and my boss is like, why don't you go sit in the break room for a minute and see how you're feeling after a minute. So yeah, I probably lost some brain cells off of that one.
If a bus doesn't do it for me, I'll find another way to kill brain cells.
Yeah. But sorry for the little tangent there.
Carbon monoxide poisoning, but I've gone into work drunk a few times, so take that for what it's worth. Nothing like operating $150,000 machine while you're hammered.
Yeah, you know, they say don't take this while operating heavy machinery. You were definitely operating heavy machinery, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, that was at a different time in my life. It was last year, which was technically a different time in my life.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely gone into work hungover. I don't know about drunk, but
well, I both 2 or 3 times I've gone into work drunk. It was because I got so hammered the night before. I shouldn't be talking about this on a podcast.
Just don't tell your coworkers about it.
I don't care, but let's. I'm just yeah. There's no reason I need to talk about being like a drunk machinist. I don't even drink that much. I just overdo it occasionally.
It's the way to go sometimes.
Yeah.
Just don't tell your coworkers you're on this podcast.
Oh, my coworkers knew I was drunk. It made my boss reminisce about all the times he came to work drunk.
Sounds like a great environment.
Or all the times he got drunk at work.
Even better.
Yeah. My old boss. As far as bosses go, no one beats my old boss.
Yeah, there was one of my coworkers years ago who got fired because he was coming into work with some whiskey in his like coffee thermos or whatever. So
yeah, no. Apparently, it was a daily tradition with some of the old school guys at my work where they would go get drunk at lunch.
Oh yeah, actually, that happened at my old boss. At my old job. We would have we had an hour for break, and one of my coworkers liked to go to the bar. So yeah, fun stuff.
Okay, this is my favorite story about how rad that boss was, and then we can move on. One time, they were doing some sketchy shit to one of my coworkers, and we were all like discussing like how we could get the boss, not my like immediate boss, but the owner, to do right. And then my boss walked up. His name was John, and I go, "Hey, John, if y'all don't take care of Dwayne, we're all going to go on strike." And my boss said, "Like, I'm not going to encourage you, but I've been in your position, so yeah, you do what you got to do." And then he told us about the time he unionized his previous job.
Okay. Well, hey.
Yeah, my boss was a union guy. He was. I said something about starting a union, and he was like, "Don't let me get in your way." I don't know. All of my reactionary ass coworkers are in the way. You're fine.
Oh yeah, that is like pretty much as good as a boss you can have, I think.
Yeah, when your boss says start a union and all of your coworkers are getting like, "Yeah, unions ruin this country," I'm like, "Yeah, I live in the wrong place or the wrong era or something."
Yup. Well, all right. Sorry. Back to the whatever news story we were talking about. Where was I? Okay. All right. Yeah. So, yeah, getting back into it. GM did note that they've been for years now shooting for what they call a 000 vision, and this is, I think, pretty important. This was like really far down in the article, but they there wasn't ever any real urgency on this kind of 000 vision. There was no deadline, nothing like that. But they're kind of marking a shift in that, it seems. So the 000 vision would be zero emissions vehicles, and the two other targets have been zero congestion and zero crashes as the second and third vision goals. So what this tells us, I think, is actually pretty important. From this, we can gather that GM is absolutely working on self-driving technology, which, I mean, shouldn't be that shocking. I'm sure all the manufacturers are working on this, or at least in collaboration with other companies that are. But that's going to be coming soon. Whether that's going to be coming before 2035 or after, I don't know. I'm sure it'll be some slow rollout, but for anyone wondering, I feel like for car enthusiasts, our greatest fear has to kind of be the self-driving technology. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but that to me seems like that's going to be what is actually a real threat to our ability to drive, be it on regular roads or even at the track. I think that's.
I don't own anything that's fuel injected, so I think we've established my opinion on computers in vehicles.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't see them developing the technology anytime soon that is going to make an actual self-driving car. Like, I guess we'll talk about it later, but I found all kinds of, or I think both of us, Connor, found a whole bunch of stories of, Teslas on autopilots crashing into various things.
Sure. So this is going to be funny because we're totally going to take like almost a different tone making fun of that shit, as we should. But realistically, for every one of those, there's 1,000, human beings crashing cars.
Right. Yeah,
That's,
definitely.
so there's that fact. There's also the technology gets better kind of exponentially as these systems learn more and more about driving and road conditions. Um, it could be very quick. So it feels like, oh, it's not a concern. It's not a concern. And next thing you know, it's fucking a concern. Is kind of where I think things are going to go. So yeah, I don't know. I thought I did think it was worth mentioning the 000 vision and what that kind of indicates is kind of coming down the line here.
Yeah, I was really expecting one of the zeros to be 0 children left unsacrificed to Moloch.
I don't think they can be open about that, though. Is really
Yeah,
the
I
problem
bet
there.
they're really shooting for the quadruple 0 vision.
That would be my guess. Yeah. They can't report that, but yeah, the quadruple 0 vision is really what they're after.
I mean, that would be Audi, wouldn't it, with the 4 zeros on the grill?
Yeah, but that makes too much sense. That would be too obvious. They gotta be more subtle, I guess.
Too obvious or not too obvious enough?
I feel like we're like conspiracy theorists, looking for the signs, the hidden Fenords or whatever.
Oh yeah, no, I mean absolutely. No, I don't do that, but I kind of wish I could sometimes. It seems like a fun mystery to solve. Except it has often
It's not a
real world
conspiracy;
consequences.
it's a fact.
With a fact with no evidence.
9/11 was an inside joke.
Oh, great.
7-Eleven was a part-time job.
I love that one.
Okay, so 9/11 jokes aside, GM is already preparing to. GM is already. God. Okay, I got this. GM is already preparing to ramp up EV production by changing over 3 U.S. assembly plants to making EVs. The transition of other plants will take place over the next few years. So from this, we're gathering, this will be a pretty immediate change for 3 plants. So I'm sure they've already chosen which plants those are going to be, what's going to be produced there, and all the equipment and all that's probably going to be beginning. If it hasn't already, it will be beginning surely in the next few months. So that's coming. That will be obviously affecting real workers. And I don't know how. I don't know if that's going to mean, everyone's going to keep their jobs, and in fact, there could be more jobs, or it could mean that, somehow they'll find a way to make sure less people have jobs. I don't know. So we'll just kind of have to keep an eye out for that. But yeah, that's what I got on story number 1. This may be a longer episode.
I mean, I think some of these we can kind of breeze through.
Probably. Yeah. But anyway, our next story in the news, again, a little bit older, but I think as socialists, we can kind of learn a little bit from this. Because I've always kind of been interested in the topic of how can cars play a role in social movements, in terms of protesting or, all sorts of that kind of stuff. And we did see something interesting happen in Myanmar during the anti-coup protests. So hopefully our listeners are at least somewhat informed. But in the country Myanmar, which was formerly known as Burma, and many claim that that would be probably the more accurate name for the country, was under a military rule for 50 years or something. They then attempted to transition to some form of democracy, or something better than what they had. And during that time, the military was enacting a literal genocide on the Rohingya people. And of course, the democratically elected government wasn't was kind of caught in a weird spot, and in some ways not doing enough. And we don't know how much they could have done necessarily. I don't know the full story, but the situation was really, really bad. Anyway, they
They're
had a
presently
recent.
trying to protest the government by going on strike too, by the way.
Yeah, so this is, I mean, a full mobilization of pretty much the entire population. So right now, they had this very imperfect government that was sort of kind of functioning, but the military recently did enact a coup and they took back over. So that shit is really, really bad. It is not a good sign, and the population there is rightly up in arms, and they are doing everything that they can to put pressure on the new military government. Unfortunately, they're still in power, but it was notable some of the actions taken by protesters in Myanmar. So, opponents in opponents of Myanmar's military coup parked their cars in the middle of city streets and on bridges, pretending that they had broken down to block police and army trucks moving around to break up protests. So, kind of similar to stuff we saw in like the protests in Hong Kong, where protesters had put up like they were finding ways to block roads using by like gluing bricks to the ground and stuff. In this case, this was a coordinated effort for people to just leave cars, just such that they were blocking the roads. Now it's not exactly like it wasn't like hidden what was happening. Obviously, these cars weren't broken down, and I don't know if they were like completely abandoned cars or if they were, if people were just holding people up. I don't know. But it did seem to be at least an interesting tactic that we can kind of consider for future social movements that, hey, roads are, kind of like the nervous system for any city, where everything's traveling on these roads. If you block them off, you can stop repression forces from getting around and doing what they need to do, whereas protesters can move pretty much freely as long as they're on foot. Now, so calls for the for a broken down car campaign spread pretty quickly on social media after the military's overnight block on the internet was lifted. So numerous pictures soon appeared of supposedly stalled cars with their hoods raised up, and they were clogging up the streets. Now, they did succeed in at least slowing down a lot of the security forces. So they were a real pain in the ass for the authorities. However, they did have a side effect, and that was that it also slowed down and prevented a lot of protesters from getting to where they needed to be. So, like, once they're in the streets, the protesters are fine and can move freely. But to get millions of people to, any given protest, they need to have a way to get there. And if you're blocking the roads, you can cause some problems there. So, obviously, I don't know that we've seen tactics like this used much in the past, but it could be an interesting strategy, especially if this were a little more targeted in ways that like the cars would supposedly stall only once security forces were trying to break through or whatever. That would be you know that would be an interesting development for this tactic, I think. But only time will tell. It's just something that we may see. We will probably see this going forward in some way, shape, or form, and I think it could have some efficacy. Anyway, so one of the other things we saw was there's definitely pictures out there now, but tires were also playing a pretty significant role in creating barricades used by the protesters to slow down repression forces. So, um, maybe say in the U.S., I don't know that we would have in cities if people would have enough tires laying around to make actual barricades out of them. But it's one of those things that it's kind of a a nuisance garbage product, but in terms of making barricades and stopping vehicles from going down streets, a stack of tires can really be effective, I would think.
Yeah, as a drift guy, you're basically an armory now.
Yeah, that is definitely true. In fact, I got to start getting rid of them because my dad's going to be moving soon, and he he keeps reminding me. He's like, "Hey, you got about 20 tires under the porch. You got to get rid of." And I'm like, "Yeah, I got to do something with those." So, yeah,
Given my
consider-
penchant for shit heaps, I'm well prepared for vehicles stalling out.
Yeah.
beautiful.
Except mine would probably stall on the way to go stall.
It would stall in too convenient a place.
Like, sorry guys, I want to come stall out with you, but it just won't start at all.
Yeah. So, Connor, have you considered getting rid of those tires by setting them on fire and rolling them towards the cops?
I feel like that is so that's kind of the idea that I'm taking this. Like, what we're seeing in Myanmar is a particular new tactic, or maybe it's not new. I don't know. It's something I haven't seen before, but we can learn from this. And I think the flaming rolling tire is beautiful. I didn't think of that specifically. I'm not going to pretend that I did, but things like that where we're using tires or we're using shit heap cars, or even, could we? It's not as crucial, I don't think, but I think it might be interesting to see the use of cars in like noise demonstrations. Especially people like us who have loud shitbox cars. I feel like that could be a fun way to contribute to demonstrations like that. But yeah, flaming tires are, especially if you've got the wind on your side or something. That's a real tactic that we could see play out. So whether it's whether you're
well, that's what they're. I was going to say that's what they're doing in Haiti right now, protesting against the president who is refusing to leave at the end of his term. Other people have covered that better, but it's an interesting movement going on right now. It's kind of like, if Donald Trump had, said, "Oh, the election wasn't valid. I'm still president." Basically, is what's going on there, and the U.S. government is backing him up and saying, "That's right. Your term is actually ending next year because of some technicality." So,
I remember hearing. I can't remember what the exact technicality was, but it was preposterous. You're just like, no.
I didn't think it was that preposterous.
No.
Like the election, like I don't think that he has any right to stay in office, but his reasoning is real. From what I remember, wasn't it something like the election, or like he got into office like way late?
Yeah, because basically his election was contested,
Right.
because he probably got a lot of votes in a fraudulent way, because he was the U.S. backed candidate.
Yeah, the thing was just that like it is very clearly spelled out in their constitution that it kind of doesn't matter if he got started late. His term ends at a certain day.
Right. Yeah.
So he's just like, nah, psych.
Well, yeah, and so like we saw a similar playing around by like Donald Trump to be like, oh well, they tried to impeach me for 2 years, so I should get an extra 2 years, kind of thing. It's that kind of reasoning where it's like, I'm sorry, your term, I don't give a shit. Oh, it started late. Well, that sucks. I guess you're going to have the short term of all the presidents. You'll be known throughout history.
You should have done a good enough job to get reelected.
Yep, exactly. So it's not good. So, anyway, so protests in cities across the Southeast Asian country were some of the biggest since daily demonstrations began on February 6th. So, this started obviously weeks and weeks ago. Things are still going pretty strong. And unfortunately, the coup government does obviously still remain in power. But protesters do continue to exert pressure on them, including up to today. So far, unfortunately, and this is a pretty grim statistic, at least 235 people that we know of have been killed. So that's pretty fucking bad.
Yeah, they're using live rounds on protesters there.
Yeah. So, it's one of those things that, like, I think we as leftists kind of have to take a moment and, like, let that sink in, that obviously, like, in the US things are quote unquote different, but, like, just we all have to understand that if our social movements become enough of a threat, if we reach a critical mass, the same will happen here. I mean, they will absolutely use live rounds on us. We just
Don't
haven't.
think that the cops aren't just waiting for that day.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
They've kind of already done that. Like there's tons of Black Lives Matter activists who have ended up dead by quote suicide in their cars, which were set on fire. And basically all signs point to local cops pulling them over, shooting them, and setting their cars on fire to destroy the evidence.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
I've always said that if I kill myself, first I'm going to douse my car in gasoline and tie my hands behind my back, shoot myself in the head, and then set my car on fire.
Yeah. I mean, really, that's
traditional American suicide,
Yeah, we have a lot of that in this country for sure. So yeah, no, that's the cops hunting down specific people, which I mean is awful, and in some ways it is worse. But like also we have to remember that if we get to a point where we're nearing actual revolutionary potential in this country, or just even social movements that are too much of a nuisance, we haven't even gotten to live rounds yet. So like we see bad repression in the US, but like we still haven't even reached having live ammunition used against us, and that's still an option for the state. So
in Myanmar, they did not even try using less than lethal rounds. They went straight to live rounds.
Oh, I mean, yeah, it's a little bit different. I mean, they're literally a military junta. That's what they do. But sometimes I think we're not really, we're kind of getting closer and closer to that in the U.S. too. Even just that is just the forces of reaction are always willing to enact that kind of violence, and I think we kind of have to be honest with where things are going, and like just how bad things can get from where they are now.
We're safe now because we have notorious Marxist-Leninist Joe Biden in office.
Yeah. Anyway, so let me finish off this stat. So at least 235 people have been killed. More than 2,330, including some journalists, have been arrested in the violent crackdown. So that number isn't quite as high as I would expect it, actually. But this article did not mention how many people have been like injured. So it's likely much higher than the 235. So if there's over 2,000 people who've been arrested, I mean, I could easily see 1,000 or more being seriously injured. So things are bad there, but we should at the very least be learning from the kinds of tactics we're seeing there and the kinds of resistance that the people in Myanmar are doing. So we can definitely learn a thing or two. A lot of people in America have vehicles, and those vehicles can be a real pain in the ass for the state or whoever else we may be taking action against. So just something noteworthy there, at least.
All right, folks, you heard it here first. Burnouts are for the revolution.
Exactly. I am very pro doing burnouts to stop the state.
Yeah. And I think I heard a couple years ago some rumblings of I forget what the issue was, something to do with some regulation regarding trucking. A bunch of truckers threatened to park their trucks on a freeway around DC somewhere and block traffic or something like that. But I don't think anything ever came of it.
Well, that has happened before.
Yeah, it's happened before. They talk about it pretty often. At least once a year, I see something like that kind of pop up. But Generally, things don't really ever come to fruition lately, but it has happened in the past. Mostly when most truckers were at least more involved in unions than they are now.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that was before they realized that unions were ruining this country.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. So in other, news, kind of still um, in the Asia area, it is, more bad news, but it is what it is. So Japan's Ebisu circuit suffers heavy damage after an earthquake rocks the coast of Fukushima. So recently, a 7.3 magnitude earthquake rocked the coast of Fukushima Prefecture. I don't know what that actually means, but area, I assume. The earthquake left over 100 people injured and caused massive infrastructure damage. One of the areas hit hard was the Ebisu circuit, a beloved circuit for drift vans. I don't believe anyone was actually killed in this earthquake, so that's at least
Did you say drift vans?
Actually, I think there are some like little drift vans. Like that's a
Dajiban. That's a big subculture in Japan where they get full size Dodge vans.
I know about this. I was just making sure that's what I heard you say.
No, it's not. I said drift fans.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so drift
fans. They
fans.
do drift vans in Japan.
They do. I'm pretty sure. So, yeah, that's a thing. So the earthquake triggered landslides, including the one at Ebisu Complex, around the area, and almost 1 million homes were without power for quite some time. So a lot of the damage was caused by the actual landslides that happened because of the earthquake. So we'll probably link something in the show notes, but I'm sure a lot of listeners have already seen the pictures. So the Ebisu complex, which is made up of, I believe, 7 tracks for different things here and there. There's 3 main drift tracks though, and then there's some skid pads and all that good stuff. But it's kind of situated in in this mountainous area, and so there's one of the tracks, one or more, I'm not sure, is up probably 100 or 200 feet of elevation change. So it's up there. It's still part of the same complex, but so right at the edge of that track, the landslide kind of started, and so it just cascaded down this mountainside, and a bunch of fucking rubble landed into what I think is the main biggest drift track that they're known for. So the pictures are pretty you look at them and you can see these aerial photos, and it's it is pretty substantial damage. It was a big fucking deal.
Yeah, when I first saw that photo, it was kind of hard to process. At first, I was like, "Well, that's weird. Why would they build a track where it just suddenly stops right there?" And I'm like, "Oh shit, that all that dirt is not supposed to be there." That whole side of the hill just slid down and covered a good portion of the track.
Yep.
So
it's.
I think that we can all agree that this is unequivocally the worst thing that's ever happened to Fukushima.
Well, yeah, not quite, but yeah, it's.
No, I don't recall anything else bad having ever happened there.
Well, so the same one here, excuse me. All right, let me kind of finish up. But yes, the last earthquake in 2011 in Fukushima did also damage the Ebisu circuit again, and most notably the nuclear reactor there. So obviously, we all know that caused some problems there. But nestled about 4 hours from Tokyo in the mountains, the Ebisu circuit is not just a singular track, but a complex consisting of 7 circuit tracks and 2 skid pads. So the damage, a lot of the damage was on the Driftland circuit, which is, if I'm not mistaken, that's the one most known for drifting. So the track is most known for drifting, but obviously does hold other motorsports like go-karts and open-wheel racers and stuff. And sadly, this is not the first time that the circuit has had to kind of dig itself out after an earthquake. So like I mentioned, the one in 2011 did also damage it. And I didn't know this, but apparently it actually left the circuit in worse shape. So, that's, I guess, promising in a way that, they've dealt with worse before, but also that kind of sucks. So I don't know how that's going to affect recovering going forward. Now, for any listeners that are interested, there is a GoFundMe set up to assist in bringing the track back. Right now, they are closed for the foreseeable future. That's just where things are. That they're not like putting out, oh, we'll be back in a year or something. That they're pretty solidly closed for quite a while. But there is a GoFundMe. You can, I'm sure, find it pretty easily if you go, searching up Ebisu, if you want to help. I feel kind of weird about, giving to ostensibly a capitalist enterprise that probably has insurance or, money to fix stuff, especially when there's mutual aid projects and actual more worthy causes, I think. But if you're interested, they do have a GoFundMe. Feel free to look it up and donate. So yeah, that's what I got on that. It is pretty unfortunate, but that's life, I guess. And of course, that couldn't be all of the sad news. In other sad news, I believe it was just this week, Sabine Schmitz has unfortunately passed away at age 51 due to a pretty long, drawn-out battle with cancer. So she was a former race car driver for BMW and Porsche. She is I think the only woman who has ever won the 24-hour race at the Nürburgring. So, a very big woman in motorsports and obviously hugely influential figure. She was also a Top Gear presenter. So after, the three hosts that we all know, Jeremy, Hammond, and Richard. God, it's been so long since I watched that show. Anyway, ever since they left, in 2016, she became a presenter on the show as well. So
yeah, she was sort of part-time when they were still figuring things out, I believe. But she was, on there maybe once or twice a season for like a specific thing.
Yeah.
And she was in the show. She was on the show sometimes with Clarkson and those guys. Like, I think on one of the older ones, she was coaching Clarkson on the Nürburgring on driving it, and basically said, you're going so slow, I could beat you driving a van. And then she did.
Yeah.
She was driving like a diesel Ford Transit van or something like that. And I think put down a pretty respectable time of around 11 minutes. So that goes to show just knowing the track that well as well as she does goes a long way towards, and just her driving skill, towards beating a superior car. I think Jeremy was in what was it, a Jaguar or Jaguar or whatever?
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, that's what it was, or something like that. And of course, she I think it was she also did race the same Jaguar, and I'm pretty sure beat his time by like 40 seconds or something too, which is no small feat.
And I believe she actually like grew up at the Nürburgring because her parents run a restaurant or maybe like a bed and breakfast in the area where a lot of the racers stay. So she basically had access to the track from an early age and learned the track very well from that.
Yep. She did become known as the Queen of the Nürburgring, and she estimated that she had driven the track around more than 20,000 times.
Wow.
Yeah, 20,000. that is absurd. You know, yeah. So take that for what it is. That's pretty fucking incredible. She was obviously, and kind of through the articles that I was reading, and there's a lot of tributes out there. So if you are interested at all, feel free to look at those tributes. But she was clearly beloved by fans and by her peers in the racing world. And obviously, being a personality on Top Gear is, I think, pretty big. And for a woman to be in that prominent role, I think was probably like hugely influential in getting a lot of other women and girls into a passion for cars and racing. And it sucks that she is not there to do that anymore. So
yeah, I forget the name, but there was a Formula 3 driver, a woman who said, that she was directly inspired by Sabine Schmitz to get into motorsports. So yeah, definitely she was a big influence.
Yep.
I don't really know a lot about her, but I mean, good on her for, succeeding in doing that.
Yeah, especially in a pretty male dominated sphere. She really did kick a lot of ass. So I mean, fuck it, good on her. It is a tough loss, and I think it is a tough loss for any woman in the racing world. I think so. Sad news. She will clearly be missed. But yeah, it seems like we lost a legend this past week. Now, on to our next kind of story is going to be, as we mentioned earlier in the discussion, a Tesla on autopilot slams into Michigan State Police patrol car. So I am kind of cheering for that. Awesome. Good praxis. Police say a Tesla sports car in autopilot mode slammed into the back of a Michigan State Police patrol car stopped on a Lansing area freeway early on Wednesday. Well, it's not Wednesday anymore, but it's probably a week or two ago. Whatever. Recently. So obviously the driver was in the car. I don't know doing what, but we all know that Tesla's got this like self-driving autopilot mode. It's not perfect, but generally pretty decent. But this cop was investigating a car/deer crash on I-96 near Waverly Road in Eaton County around 1:10 a.m. So middle of the night, the cop is. I don't know if they were stopped like in an actual driving lane investigating this crash, but I think they were almost certainly like not on the shoulder. I think they were actually like in the road. So this person was obviously going fast, and I don't know, the Tesla didn't react quick enough or something, or maybe the lights freaked it out. I don't know, but that system that's supposed to be pretty fucking good didn't work. For whatever reason. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know the reason, but I'm going to go ahead on the record and say it's probably because Elon Musk is a stupid butthead, and fuck him. That's probably why the technology failed, because he's an asshole. So that's not parody. That's me stating facts.
You do know the specific reason why you're correct about that, right?
Please inform me. I know I'm correct, but please.
So I don't remember the specifics because I didn't like research this right beforehand, but there's a couple of different types of like systems that they use to monitor the surroundings of self-driving cars.
Yeah.
And the one that Elon Musk insists that they use is the one that everyone else has abandoned because it's just not good for the job.
I didn't know that.
But he's such a genius. He's such a brain genius.
It's one of those, like, I don't remember the specifics, but my general impression was like it would probably work fine. It's just going to be a lot more hurdles to overcome than the systems that like Uber and whoever else have been using.
Oh,
but he just insisted that they stick with it. So
okay, there you go. That's something. I'm sure that warrants a deep dive on some future episode. which, our show is mostly, if our listeners haven't figured it out, our show is mostly consisting of us saying that this thing that we're talking about would make a good deep dive episode later.
Yeah, we'll see if we follow up on any of them.
Okay, so most self-driving cars are using LiDAR technology, which I don't know anything about. Don't ask.
It's like a laser range finding, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's similar to radar, but LiDAR. But yeah, Tesla refuses to use it, even though everyone else is sort of viewing it as the path forward for the sensors that they're using to monitor the surroundings.
But see, everyone knows a really good head engineer doesn't learn from what other people are getting to work. A good engineer makes sure that the system that they decided upon using several years ago, before the technology was well understood, is the one that they fucking use. That's what engineers do.
What was the famous Einstein quote? If I saw further than those before me, it's because I'm really tall. Fuck you.
So anyway, the impact of this crash tore the passenger side front wheel off the Tesla and caused significant damage to the patrol car. Michigan State Police say that unfortunately the trooper was not injured, and neither was the driver. It's kind of a joke, but fuck.
Yo, let me go back to the LiDAR thing real quick, because I just did a real quick skim of it and found a pretty clutch Elon quote about it.
Oh, perfect.
So most people are using LiDAR, but what Tesla is using is actually a weird AI that is trying to train the car to understand the visual world around it, similar to the way that human eyes do. So you're having to do AI programming instead of whatever much simpler thing LiDAR is using. Here's the actual quote from Elon Musk. LiDAR is a fool's errand, and anyone relying on LiDAR is doomed.
I mean, look, AI is probably a good thing to go forward, but there's no reason you can't double up and make sure you have, teach the AI LiDAR is what the fuck is do both.
Well, LiDAR is an expensive system to put on cars.
Oh, see,
it's not something you can teach. It requires all of the hardware for it.
Gotcha. Oh, yeah, that's probably not gonna. Something tells me that quote is not gonna age well.
I mean, nothing Elon Musk says really ages that well.
True. Not that people who love him ever go back and look at any of that. Anyway, so the 22-year-old Lansing man who was driving the Tesla did receive a couple tickets for failing to move over for an emergency vehicle and driving on a suspended license. So, I mean, I think that's kind of funny because he wasn't driving. He had the self-driving, the autopilot was driving. So I don't know. I don't even think he should get tickets. I think he should mail those tickets over to Elon Musk's house and say, hey, bro, think you should be taking care of these. And if I were him, and he's probably got some money, I would assume, given what he's driving, yeah, I'd probably take that to court.
Yeah, I think they were talking about this on the Smoking Tire podcast a little while ago. Which
fuck them, really? God damn, we're too late.
Well,
too late. Pack it up.
And, I mean, it's a decent podcast if you want to listen to a literal capitalist that owns a Porsche, a Ferrari, and a Lamborghini.
Who wants to listen to that?
But they were saying basically the law is such that if you're in the driver's seat, you are operating the car and you're responsible for whatever happens to it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That's probably, I mean, realistically, that is probably true. Because it's hey, you're sitting there, don't let the car crash, you fucking idiot. Take over, turn the wheel. I don't know, but don't crash.
Yeah.
So I do get that. But still, it's,
Yeah, honestly, it negates the only reason that I would respect self-driving cars, because it means I still can't get fucking shit hammered and let the car drive me home.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I found a couple stories that were like that.
You definitely get a DUI for that.
Yeah. So, Connor, when you posted this news story, I was like, I seem to remember seeing that but I thought that the car was a different color. So I went looking, and I found like 5 different incidents where Teslas have crashed into cop cars.
Wait, was
So
it specifically cop cars, huh?
yeah. So one in North Carolina, Tesla with autopilot hits cop car. Driver admits he was watching a movie. The Mercury News in Arizona, Tesla on autopilot hits police vehicle, which hits ambulance. Driver possibly drunk. So points for hitting the cop car, demerits for hitting the ambulance.
Yeah.
And then another one, I'm not sure, I think it was in Massachusetts. Tesla that hit Mass State Troopers vehicle was on autopilot. And then there's another one. I forget where that one was. So yeah, this happens quite often.
It sounds to me like Teslas are so advanced that their AI has found Jesus and is trying to drive the owners into the light.
Well, and there's one article I think we'll link in the show notes. I'll try and remember this. Where it's from Road and Track. The article is kind of not a lot of substance to it, but there's a video in there of this guy just put a dash cam basically in his Tesla and turned on the full, what they call full self-driving, but is not actually full self-driving, and it's pretty terrible. Like he's just driving around like a downtown area. I want to say it's like Pasadena or something. And, he has to like grab hold of the wheel or use the pedals or whatever. Pretty often, like almost once a block, in this like 15-minute long video or something. So yeah, they're not the technology is not quite there is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's going to get there eventually, but yeah, definitely not there right now. So moving on, I got just a couple more here. But this I thought was actually really fucking funny. And again, kind of just goes to the point that, really the United States judicial system is really in place just to protect corporate interests for the most part. So a Michigan court rules that a tire rotation does not include tightening lug nuts. So that's almost an onion-esque headline. But so they kind of start off. When you get work done on your vehicle, you expect your car to be returned in better condition than when you left it, which seems pretty obvious. Going to the shop for something especially as simple as a tire rotation is pretty normal and standard. So I guess, with a tire rotation, for anyone who doesn't know, is you basically take the wheels from the front and put them in the back and the back wheels in the front. You might crisscross them, you might not, whatever. Personally, I don't ever do tire rotations myself, partially because I'm on, non-matching wheels and totally different tires because of all the drifting and whatnot. And, my tires are always in various states of wear, so I don't even bother with that. So it's not something I do, but maybe tire rotations are important. I have really no idea.
All of my vans have open rears, so I always just have one bald tire.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah, I rule.
So anyway, I guess, so this happened in 2013 as part of yet another fucking huge indictment of our justice, quote unquote, justice system. So this happened in 2013 where obviously someone's car got fucked up and this went through the courts. And of course, the company gets a chance to appeal the decision, which initially did not go in their favor. And then, so this just recently, now, what are we, 8 years later, a court rules that, oh, no, they're not actually responsible for this damage, which is especially funny because presumably the awards were already given in the first court case. Now, I don't know how this works out. Like, if you spend the money and they like sue, I guess you have to pay them back if it's found to be not their fault on a redo for the corporation. Or you just have to, like, while it's in court, you're just like, oh well, we won all this money, but we can't fucking use it because we might lose it. I don't know. That just seems fucking crazy to me.
Also, if you're just like a tire tech, isn't the Ugga Dugga like your favorite thing in the world? Why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, exactly. So apparently, God, just lost my spot. Sorry. So in 2013, the car dealership
My Ugga Dugga joke fuck you up.
No, surprisingly not. In 2013, the car dealership was sued regarding a tire rotation. A couple had taken their car to a dealership in Grand Rapids, Michigan. They were getting some just regular maintenance done, and they had included a tire rotation as part of that maintenance. So after the service was quote unquote complete, they drove off a little ways down the road before the front left tire decided to pop off the car. So this fucked its shit right up. It doesn't go into exactly.
Speaking, it fucked its shit up. Yeah.
The technical term. So they went back. The mechanic admitted, oh fuck, I forgot to tighten the lug nuts, whatever. And the couple sued the dealership for damages, rightfully so, because their car was completely fucked by this. One of the points that their attorney made was in reference to the Motor Vehicle Service and Repair Act, which this law protects consumers from quote-unquote unfair and deceptive practices. So turns out if you violate the act, you are responsible for the damages and the court fees. Duh. The court originally found the dealership and the mechanic guilty and fined them. And the jury made the dealership cover the court fees, which totaled over $70,000. Again, another indictment of our quote-unquote justice system, and awarded the couple $40,000 in damages, presumably for the price of the car. So this kind of indicates to me that the car was almost certainly totaled. So notably that it is notable that their insurance isn't involved here, suing on their behalf. So I don't know what that means exactly, but it was probably just their vehicle involved. So like they probably didn't crash into anyone else or anything like that. It seems that it's just it fucked the car up enough that they needed a new one, or they were pissed off enough and said, "Fuck you! Now we're going to sue you for $40,000 instead of you just fixing it." I don't know. I'm on their side either way. So obviously the couple had won, they got their payment, and then the dealership appealed the decision and stated that they did not violate the Motor Vehicle Service and Repair Act. The dealership claimed that they did not, quote unquote, and here's the part of the law that they're challenging, they did not charge for repairs that are in fact not performed, which is not the fucking point, as far as I can tell. It's like, no one said that. It's just that you didn't complete the fucking job you said you did. So the court decided to take another look at the case and determined that rotating the tires did not include tightening of the lug nuts as part of the job. The court stated, we conclude under the plain language of a bunch of letters and numbers, you can look it up yourself, that defendants, quote unquote, performed a tire rotation, albeit negligently, negligently. There is no support for the trial court's determination that a tire rotation is not performed if a service person fails to sufficiently tighten the lug nuts on one tire. So this will be a huge problem in Michigan very quickly because, of course, if you say took your engine into the shop for a rebuild and they forgot to put one of your pistons in, you're shit out of luck because they could still say, oh, I mean, we took it apart and we changed all the gaskets and we rebuilt the motor. It's got all new bearings. I don't know what your fucking deal is. We rebuilt the motor. Sorry, we forgot something.
Dude, I'm imagining an engine with like 7 pistons and 8 rods. And
yes, that's exactly what I...
You got one rod just helicoptering around in the fucking crankcase.
That's exactly why that's exactly why I chose that example, because it's so absurd. But by exactly the same reasoning of these fucking great legal minds, that wouldn't have to be included, because you could just separate any particular part of a given job arbitrarily, I might add. You can just say, oh, well, that part of the job isn't required for the job to have been done. Like, I can, change. I can do, I can change out my differential just fine, but who cares if I don't put one of my axles back in? I still did the job, and it's like, but you didn't. So of course, more absurdity in our legal system. Unfortunately, these poor people are paying the price for that. So I don't know if they have to just like pay back all the money or what, but that's a rough determination there. So yeah,
That is
pretty.
just I like cannot even wrap my head around the reasoning for this.
No,
Yeah.
it's because it's
Porting
obscene.
something to spec not part of the fucking job.
I'm guessing
Exactly.
I'm guessing these lawyers don't even know what a lug nut is. Like, they just think that wheels are held on by, I don't know, magical sticky tape or something. I don't know what.
A room full of people who don't know the term torque spec.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just an absurd case, which kind of just does make me remind me of another fun podcast that I'll plug, because that's what our podcast is, really just a chance for us to plug other podcasts. The 5 to 4 podcast, if anyone's listening to that, where they investigate old Supreme Court cases and just talk about how fucking ridiculous they are.
Yeah, that's what scares the shit out of me about this. It's not how absurd it is, it's that it sets a precedent.
Yes. Oh yeah, and that's almost always how it happens. And
like, if it were just ridiculous, that would suck for that one individual, but haha, whatever. No, this just means that nobody in Michigan has to be held responsible for doing flimsy work now.
Oh, exactly. And so this is that's why I'm kind of plugging like the 5 to 4 podcast, because they kind of go through all these cases to show that, hey, all this legal bullshit, that's exactly what it is. It's bullshit. They work backwards from a conclusion. They want corporations to not have to be held liable for shitty outcomes, so they find some bullshit legal reasoning to support them. And that's, you see that in the U.S. Supreme Court. You see that in every state Supreme Court. You see that in district courtrooms all the time. They set precedent. They have these absurd, ridiculous conclusions, but of course, corporate lawyers know all of those precedents and they use them, all the way. And so, that is it is a long process how that happens, but it is very unfortunate. We live with the results every day of our lives, and this is just one more of those. So yeah, it'll probably get pretty fucking absurd and cause all sorts of problems for other businesses and poor people getting fucked over by negligent corporations. So yeah, that's pretty unfortunate. Also, quickly, I mean, this is more of a rumor than it is what it is. It's a story, but maybe it'll give us all some hope. Apparently, Subaru and Toyota are apparently developing a all-wheel drive hot hatch together. So that could be kind of fun. Obviously, the two work together on the old FRS and BRZ / GT86 for Toyota. So they made that little rear-wheel drive sports car. The two are kind of diverging now, but apparently this new car could be Subaru's window to kind of get back into the World Rally Championship, because they kind of notably abandoned those endeavors in the past few years. So this might be kind of a way back in, which I assume is, to help their marketing and whatnot, of course, which is fine, whatever. Racing school. According to Japanese language car news site Best Car Web, Subaru and Toyota are jointly developing a new Impreza-sized hot hatch with horizontally opposed engine and symmetrical all-wheel drive. The report does say that the car is expected to debut in November of 2022. So it's a little ways off, but it could be something interesting. And a hot hatch is, I remember the old, WRX and STI hatches from like the 2010 to 2013 or 14 era, which I think Zach has. That's his WRX. That's like my favorite body style, and this could be similar to that.
Yeah, and it looks like Zach is with us now. Hi, Zach.
Hi, yeah, I'm here now. I don't want to
Hey.
just
Yeah.
randomly drop in, but yeah, that's very promising. I love it. I love to hear it. I would trade my WRX for a new WRX hatchback equivalent in an instant. I absolutely love them. So that's super.
You heard it here. Yeah, so this could be a pretty exciting kind of thing, which is why I'm mentioning it. They're saying, this could be part of, again, their opportunity to get back into the WRC, the rally racing and all that. So we'll see if that happens or not. But could be cool either way. Just something I wanted to mention. And then I do have this kind of longer story, but it can actually be boiled down pretty simply. This week, Tesla cars were banned from China's military complexes on security concerns, quote unquote. The Chinese were citing that, hey, look, these cars have all sorts of cameras and stuff, and they do pose some security threat to their military bases, because we all know with growing U.S. aggression, they have to be careful. Whether that's the real reason or not is who knows. I wouldn't put it above the CIA to pull some shit like that and to be clumsy about it. But at the same time, if the CIA did want to get around this, they would probably find some Chinese produced car to steal data from, or have an informant use. So it would only slow down anyone from getting information that they didn't want. It wouldn't stop it, but it could also be that China's kind of doing this to Tesla to put them in the vice, kind of like the U.S. has done to the Huawei Corporation, where they're, doing a bunch of, shit to stop them from getting more telecom contracts and stuff. So, the U.S. has been punishing Huawei, one of probably, I think they're the largest telecom company in the world, at least the biggest one in China. So it does seem that China is kind of doing the same thing back to Tesla. It may have serve a dual purpose, but that seems to be kind of the long and short of it.
Yeah, dude, I want to read more about this because I'm really fascinated and horrified by like the ramping up Cold War. And this you could come at this from about a half a dozen different angles, and it could be any one of a number of things. It could be like that straightforward on its face. It could be like half made up, and some journalist is trying to like rally people against fucking China because they like Elon Musk, or any one of a number of different things.
Yeah,
it's so hard to suss out the truth when people are reporting on China.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm trying to keep this one kind of short because I don't think we're going to know the truth, really. I mean, we know that the U.S. is ramping up their bullshit on China. We know that we're seeing that in our media all over the place. But we also know that the U.S. has put a lot of their companies into an economic vice, and now China could just be flexing and pointing out that, oh, hey, yeah, we've got a lot of your companies by the balls too, which I'm happy if they start flexing that a bit more, because that's the whole point behind a lot of the Chinese policies that I would maybe criticize for not being socialist enough. Kind of the whole idea is, well, if they get this kind of control, they can exert force on U.S. companies. And I'm like, well, I wouldn't mind seeing that a little bit more. So it could be that. It could be all kinds of things. So we don't really know. I did think it was notable that, China has made the decision to come out and say that Teslas are not allowed on their bases, and to take that pretty drastic action, whether it's founded or not in any real threat, I don't know, but it is significant news.
How prominent is Tesla in China?
So in China, Tesla sold 147,405 cars in just the last year. So 30%.
That's surprising, because honestly, I didn't think Tesla had even made that many cars yet.
I know, me neither.
Zing!
Yeah. It did account for 30% of its total deliveries. Now, this is notable. Competition is growing from domestic rivals such as Neo Inc. and Geely. So there are Chinese companies making electric vehicles, and they are increasingly more competitive and in many cases much less expensive. So that could be another angle to this story. So kind of keeping it short and sweet, but there's something boiling um, going on there, and we'll kind of see how it works out. Um, it could just be a lot of bluster and typical geopolitics on an international scale of tit for tat
Yeah, I
BS.
didn't realize there were so many Teslas in China, because one of my thoughts was like that it was sort of just a bluster kind of move, like, oh well, when y'all do get some cars over here, but
This
no,
literally
there's
will affect Tesla very directly. And they're now, the article also mentioned that they're looking to have like military officials and stuff kind of not use Teslas and move to other domestically produced cars. So there's all sorts of international, political, economic factors here. I don't think we're going to necessarily know the truth of exactly what's going on, but it is notable that they have taken this move. Now, apparently, Musk is scheduled to speak online on Saturday, so I guess that's yesterday from when we're recording. Whatever. In a state-hosted annual global economic gathering in Beijing called the China Development Forum. So I guess if you're a listener and you're particularly interested in what's going on in China and this and that, you can probably find that China Development Forum. So the event will include some Chinese officials as well as Elon Musk. So yeah, you can look into that if you'd like. But yeah, I just thought it was important news to mention at the very least.
Yeah, and I think Tesla was looking into building a factory in China because that's like their number two market right now.
wow. I did not know all that.
Yeah, they have at least one plant in Shanghai. I'm
Okay.
pretty sure they actually have a couple of plants in China, and one of their
Yeah.
big, whatever they call them, giga plants or whatever the fuck, is in China. So
God, just fuck that
um,
guy, Jesus.
yeah. So here's the thing. Part of the whole, we'll say, socialist strategy that China claims to be pursuing, in which they do get some rapid industrialization and they do actually compete on the world capitalist markets using their whatever. Um, I don't mind them having that kind of some control over an Elon Musk and being able to kind of um, do that a little bit. But like I said, I don't know yet. This is a pretty early story. This came out just this week from Reuters. So, we'll see kind of how this story develops and obviously how the continuing Cold War rhetoric continues to ramp up in the next few months and years.
And this kind of reminds me of, I think it was around last year. I forget the name of the app, but there's this app for like tracking your workout, your run or whatever. Um, and a bunch of like U.S. military personnel were using this app while they were going for their runs, like their morning PT at military bases. And some of these military bases were secret, installations that they didn't really want everyone to know where they were.
Mm-hmm.
But this app was basically broadcasting, Lieutenant so and so was running in this route, which
Yeah,
happens
that's
to
bad.
be the perimeter of the base.
That was the one
In
where it wasn't even spy. It was like a social media aspect of it, right? Like
yeah,
people were
yeah,
posting
exactly.
their runs, and from that you could suss out the perimeter of the base.
Yeah, and a bunch of people were using this app to like draw like giant dicks on the landscape with their runs, So it was kind of a goofy thing, but like, the US military took it very seriously and was like, you're not allowed to use this app anymore. So that kind of, is similar to what China is doing, I think. It seems like a pretty prudent thing to keep that kind
Yeah.
of stuff away from your military bases.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So, on that note, that's about all I've got for the news this month. So, I'm sure we'll have another one soon, and we'll get you more automotive news.
Yeah, I think we'll probably talk about the RPM Act in a more deep dive sort of episode. But there is one story that I wanted to mention that it's not strictly an automotive or even a vehicle thing. But this article from Gizmodo, this Mars bar rover will chase you around a store and tempt you to buy candy. And it's this little robotic merchandise display that will follow shoppers around a grocery store and, say, hey, you want to buy a candy bar? And
Yeah, so
I think
bad.
we were talking about this. Connor, you said something like, this is the most capitalist thing ever, or something like that.
Oh, yeah, it is. It's so obnoxious.
We're going to need to get you a podcast for just gadget discussions.
Yeah.
Go gadget capitalism.
So, yeah, it's coming soon to a grocery store near you.
Yeah. So I think we should wrap up. I might talk with Zach here for a minute about his project cars or something if you all need to get going here. But
yeah, I do have to jump off myself.
Yeah, I'm on the delightful schedule of getting up at 3 in the fucking morning so that I can be at work by 4 a.m. So I'm dying.
All right. Well, I'll say goodbye, guys. Good to talk to you.
Yep. Goodbye, guys.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
When we go to work, we check our hard-won rights at the door, and your employers rule over you night and day.
With the last words on my lips, I am a revolutionary.
All right. So we're recording again. Zach couldn't make it for most of the episode, but we're here talking just to put this. I don't know. I don't know where we'll put this in the episode, but just wanted to get your updates on your projects and various stuff. See how you're doing.
Yeah. I think I've got a couple things done since I last talked about them. It's been a while since we talked about project cars. I feel like, but I got some coilovers for the WRX. Got those on a couple weeks ago. I've had them for months. I've just been preoccupied.
What variety are you going with?
So I went with the Faction Fab F-Spec coilovers. Lower cost coilover, but great reviews. Everybody seems to like them. They got a lot of higher end features compared to their price point.
Nice. Yeah. I think I might have told you I thought about doing coilovers on mine, but it's kind of expensive, and when I bought the car, I didn't really have a whole lot of money left over for mods, and so I went it had blown shocks, and I just went with the I forget the brand, but the model is called Excel G, and they're sort of the OEM Plus struts, and they're maybe a little bit stiffer than the stock ones. But yeah, they work okay. But the tires I have are not very well matched. It's a little bit harsh ride.
Yeah, that's always a little bit of a trade-off if you go with, even a really, really nice coilover. Anything that makes your suspension stiffer. You can have the nicest tires in the world, but stiffer suspension means a rougher ride. It's just the way that it is.
Yeah, and I probably need to do some sway bars or something would be probably the next step if I was going to change anything in the suspension. Are you doing sway bars on yours?
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely on the list right now. I just received a cold air intake though for it. I gotta look into getting a tune for that to make sure that I don't run lean and blow a valve or burn up a ring or anything like that. But that's definitely on the list somewhere. Sway bars and maybe some chassis bracing, possibly.
Yeah,
as well. I think I'm going to give it a little time to get used to the coilovers before I start making it any more stiff.
Yeah, I know at least with the strut type suspension, those do benefit from having some kind of chassis brace like a strut tower brace or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I think yours is new enough that it has the multi-link suspension in the rear. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a multi-link in the rear.
Okay. So that might be a little different. I'm not sure how that works exactly.
I mean, it's still going to have a similar effect. Maybe not as drastic as an older model without a multi-link suspension, but you're still going to be stiffening the chassis, less flex, the same kind of idea. But like I said, yeah, maybe just not quite as drastic.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
So you got those installed and you're driving on them, or?
Yeah, I got those installed maybe 2 weeks ago now, I think. And then yesterday I adjusted them a little, pulled the wheels and tires again, just to get in there and give it a little adjustment, just to fine tune it after driving on it for a while. Because if you've never installed coilovers before, you probably won't get it right the first time. And you don't really know how the car is going to respond and react until you've driven on it for a while. So be aware that if that's something that, you as a listener plan to do, you're probably going to have to get back in there and mess with it again.
Yeah, and with any suspension part, you usually want to, I don't know, at least put the car on the ground and like jostle it around, if not like drive around the block to settle everything in place. And then maybe double check and tighten everything up and make sure it's good.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You don't want a wheel falling off because you forgot to tighten lug nuts.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that could be unfortunate. Yeah, I think that's all the new stuff, the new cool little bits on the WRX. I don't know if I mentioned it yet on the podcast, but I'm done with the Audi S4. That is running, driving, all good to go, and just waiting on a buyer for that now.
Oh, so you're trying to get rid of it?
Yeah, it's not something I want to hang on to. I've got a million other project ideas that I would rather have than an Audi that sits in the garage.
Yeah, I guess you don't really need two all-wheel drive cars.
Yeah, they're a little too similar to have two of them, I think. And the WRX is just more easily moddable. It's more fun. It's a better daily driver. Less headaches.
Yeah, a lot cheaper too, I imagine.
Astronomically. I mean, everything is half the price or less.
Yeah.
In comparison.
Well, I guess if any listeners want to buy your car, just email us.
Yeah. We'll get it set up.
We'll work that out.
I don't know if anyone will be willing to, because I've talked a lot of shit about that car on the podcast already. But hey, if you like making bad decisions, hit me up.
Yeah.
We'll make it happen.
Well, they're listening to us, so that's one bad decision already.
Yeah, they're already on a good path. Might as well just double down on it. Buy a 15-year-old luxury German sedan.
Yeah. Likewise, if anyone wants to buy a half-broken scooter, or a moped from me, hit me up.
We may have to talk about that. That sounds something that I might do. That sounds like a bad decision I would make.
Yeah. Well, we might do a deep dive into scooters and mopeds in the future. I'm gonna try and find a guest to talk about that. But they're kind of fun, especially if you're doing if you want a low budget way of messing around with something mechanical. They're pretty simple and cheap and easy to find parts for them and all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
that'd be a great way to get into just wrenching. I mean,
yeah,
even a decent scooter is going to be cheaper than the cheapest car, and then boom, there you go. You got something to crank on.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we'll talk about this some more, but that's how I got into into wrenching and stuff is I got an old Vespa moped, not a scooter, a moped. Want to make that clear. And the engine only has 3 moving parts, and you can take it apart with pretty simple tools and change out the cylinder and the piston or the exhaust or whatever to get, go from 30 miles to 40 miles an hour.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah. Which is really as fast as you want to be going with mechanical drum brakes.
Yeah, that seems scary.
Yeah. It's pretty low tech operation. Yeah, I think that might be all, unless you have something else you want to put at the end of this episode.
No, I think that's about it.
Okay. Well, cool. Well, thanks for getting on the call, man. I'm not sure what we'll be doing.
All profit is value extraction, and that means that all profit is theft from you.
There's a point, 7,000 RPM, where everything fades. The machine becomes weightless, just disappears. And all that's left is a body moving through space and time. 7,000 RPM, that's where you meet it. You feel it coming, creeps up on you close in your ear, asks you a question, the only question that matters. Who are you?
Our economy isn't about freedom at all, just the opposite. American capitalism today is defined by an overwhelming lack of freedom for the vast majority of people and incredible dictatorial power for a few people at the very top.
She assaulted my authority.
Yeah.
And that's nothing but pure and simple old-fashioned communism.
Socialism is the people. You're afraid of yourself. If you're afraid of socialism, you're afraid of yourself.
The essence of free market corporate capitalism is the transformation of living nature into commodities and commodities into dead capital.